Okay, and welcome to episode 3 of our Code and Character podcast. Today, it's Ivan and Bevin back on deck to have a chat about AI and how it applies to our lives, pretty much, and how it's affecting the world. Where, why AI might be the best or worst thing that's happened to our careers, and why it might not. So, imagine a world where AI is doing half your job. Are we there yet, or not? Let's get into it. So, Ivan,
Okay.
let's get into it. How have you been with your AI this week?
Well, to answer your question, yeah, I use it a lot. So I use, I have GitHub Copilot. That's been a bit
Yeah,
hit and miss personally. I've used it on one of my sites, which was a WordPress site, and that really did help. But with Drupal stuff in particular, it's a bit hit or miss. It tries to figure things out. But JavaScript stuff, I know that there was a project that I had to work on. It was an Angular site, and it was a very basic thing. I forgot what it was, but it was just basic string manipulation. And I literally just started typing it, and it kind of figured it out. So
yeah,
there's been moments where it was like, whoa, it actually
yeah.
figured that out. Okay, that's pretty cool. When I was working on the WordPress, I was working on the WordPress site, webwash.net, just a free plug. Anyway,
Yep.
it is a WordPress site, and I was building out some course functionality. And as I was writing out code, it would actually learn and then figure things out. And it did a pretty good job, like a really, really good job at figuring things out and just kind of fleshing it out for me. But one thing I have kind of realized is that when it comes to technologies that you're not 100% sure on, that's where it really helps.
Yep.
And also sometimes, if Drupal's a little too verbose. Oh, well, no, one time, okay, this is.
Do you mean Drupal's too verbose, or
um,
AI gets
it
the
was funny. It was
Copilot
like,
gets verbose?
well, I know that this episode, it was meant to be not Drupal specific, but with Drupal people will understand this. When you're dealing with classes and dependency injection, sometimes just adding in an extra service or something is really annoying. And so I've used GitHub Pilot to actually generate the whole, the proper dependencies, putting it through the constructor or the create class or whichever it is. I don't know. I always have to spend 20 minutes figuring out exactly which way of doing it. But what was it? GitHub Pilot, you ask it and it does a very good job of just generating the code for you, and you chuck it in and it works 90% of the time.
Yeah.
90% of the time. How about yourself? Have you had any experience?
I haven't worked with Copilot at all. That's something I need to do. I've played with ChatGPT. Yeah. How do you say that? ChatGPT.
Chat Jupiter. Stupider.
I've played with that quite a lot. I use it quite extensively. Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to narrow down and say how I use it, because I adapt and I change, and it's often a brainstorming tool. Sometimes it generates code, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's troubleshooting. Sometimes I'm using it as a search engine. It's really I'm still getting a handle for myself on exactly what I use it for and how I describe it as a tool. I tend to describe it a bit as a very intelligent, very knowledgeable toddler that doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You can ask it questions and it gives you information, but you got to guide it and hold its hand and tell it it's being silly. Very, very strange. So getting into, the journey of discovery with AI, because I know it only came, things like ChatGPT and generative AI really only came onto my radar effectively like a year to 18 months ago, which may be similar for a lot of people out there. I'd heard of it a lot, but my consciousness had just not picked it up. And, it probably, ChatGPT released 12 months before that, maybe. And I'd heard talk of it. What about you? To me, I'm in this weird place where it's still absolutely brand new, but it's a part of my daily life. And I use it so extensively, and I still meet a lot of people who just don't, right? Especially outside our world, you know.
Yeah. Well, the way I first discovered this whole AI stuff was first with Copilot. That was the first one that came out. This was way before ChatGPT. And I remember I got a preview. I got access to the preview license or the preview version of it, and I tried it out once, and it actually started generating things as you're typing, which at first I was like, this is crap, turn it off. I didn't touch it. And I think it generated like 20 lines of like HTML when I simply just typed in less than HTML, and it just generated all this stuff. I'm like, no, this is crap. And I turned it off and I forgot about it. And then of course, once the whole ChatGPT came, was talked about, I started playing around with it. And then I started paying a bit more close attention to it. And now I do use it in my actual content workflow to a certain extent. When it comes to generating content, at first I was like, oh, you know what? This is awesome. I'm going to start.
When you say content, you mean blog
writing
posts,
content? Yeah. Like generating content, like my content workflow for writing blog posts and things like that. And so at first I was like, all right, I'm going to get it to write blog posts for me. Then I was terribly disappointed with it. It was like, this doesn't work, and then it wasn't until I started watching how actually jumping on all of these like cringy LinkedIn videos, because now if you go on LinkedIn, everyone's selling AI services.
Yep.
Like that's the thing. And I kind of feel like a bit of FOMO. Well, crap, maybe I should.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do that. Like what aren't I doing? But then I've heard funny stories where people are, they think they have a successful SaaS where they are spending like $1,000 a month on OpenAI API access. And they're only making like $100 a month. It's like, but yeah, if you actually watch the way they do things, like that's what really opened up my eyes, just seeing how other people do it. Because I would ask it a question and I'll be terrible, and then the result would be like, this is crap. But then you watch the way other people do it, and they have like all these little like snippets of being very specific, asking question after question after question, and you can automate that to a certain extent. And then you get something kind of coherent. What I've come down to, and I'll stop talking in a second, but to actually get to the point, I have used it. So I use it for brainstorming. Like recently, again, sorry 100%. For the Drupal mention, I wrote a thing saying, write a LinkedIn post, mentioning 10 views modules, and it did a pretty good job. Like it actually picked up awesome views modules that I totally forgot about. Of course, I would have fixed that up, but things like that you can get to generate. And also for me, I love doing a brain dump. So when I write, I just dump my thoughts, and then I copy paste that text, with like spelling mistakes, sentence structure totally wrong. As long as I've got a few major points and objectives, I then chuck that into ChatGPT, and it kind of, writes a fairly coherent paragraph or section or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's where I have used it. And also with me, when it comes down to like writing my blog posts, I like to have an intro and like an introduction, a summary, and kind of like a few sections for SEO. Kind of like, if it's about Bootstrap, I need to have an airy-fairy thing about what is Bootstrap, or if it's like what is React and things like that. Those type of things I don't like writing because they require some creative writing, and I'm not good at that. Good at that, but that's where I can just get ChatGPT to write it, and of course I fix it up. But that's where it kind of comes into where I use it. So I don't have it writing blog posts end to end, like I've seen people. Like I saw a video
you can
today.
Tell though, can't you?
Oh, you can. Yeah, absolutely. So in that case, yeah, like I use it. Like I use it on a daily basis.
And fascinating. I agree with so much of what you had to say in that across the board. I've used it for troubleshooting. I can go, hey, I'm in this situation. What should I check? And sometimes I can find it quite damn annoying because I'll go check this, check that, and you go, that's stupid. That's ridiculous. That's nothing to do with it. No. And then it hits something and you go, oh, I hadn't thought about that. And you go, I'm going to go check that. And so it can be good for that sort of thing. That's exactly what you said before about, just coming up with your views modules that you're talking about, and it listed some you hadn't thought of. That kind of stuff. I think it can be really a good adjunct to your own brainstorming. I find. Do you remember that TV show, Mr. Squiggle?
Yes.
Remember that on the ABC years ago? And
now we're showing our age, man.
Yeah. The concept of that was he used to draw pictures from a squiggle. They'd get a piece of paper with some random squiggle on it, and he'd turn that into a picture. And I've seen artists do this same thing. I think there's even people have named this thing called the blank page syndrome.
Yeah.
Like someone gives you a blank page, you go here, write something, and you're stuck. And I've literally done it. Sit down and just write random keywords down, and then be able to flow and build something. I find it really seems to solve that problem. You go, hey, write me a blog post for that, and you read it, and you go, that's crap, right? And then you go, and then you can reply to it and go, it's crap because of this, and you should have added this, and I want to add this instead, and do this, and then you go do it again. You go, wow, that's way better, and it's still crap. And you go, see this paragraph. Update that paragraph, put this paragraph in there. I know I can. I'm working on doing a Drupal course at the moment, just in there writing about just doing a demo on how to do Drupal menus. Now, I know how to do it myself, and I could sit there and write it, but just being able to get it to dump it out and go, no, put this paragraph at the end. Now, this one, expand that one a bit. I want you to be more specific that they got to click this button and then this button and then this one. And then it writes it, and then you go, okay, and now I need a bit where you actually go and click the save button and then go and check it on the homepage. Can you add that? And it just writes it in such nice, it writes it well, right? It saves all the brain power of me having to use that sense of poetry. And I can tell it write it at an 8th grade level, which seems to work for the course, because I've got lower than that. It just sounds really silly. But again, knowing to tell it to write things at a certain reading level, there's a skill set, isn't there, that you pick up, which, sort of doing the discovery thing. It's been an interesting journey. When I first did it, when I first used ChatGPT, I was blown away. One of the first things I did was write a YouTube video script about me investigating these bacon egg rolls, and found myself just working with it, like going, hey, how do I write a good YouTube script? And it goes, you need an intro, a middle, and an end. I'm like, okay, cool. Here's my idea. I'm going to get these, and I sort of told it my story. I went and did this bacon egg roll. I goes, here's the intro, and so just grab bits of it and go, see this intro? Can you expand on that? Can you make it and then sort of take that out and then edit it and almost rewrite it again in my own words. It was one of the very first things I did. But that was, I was blown away, right? And I quickly went and played with ChatGPT. It's so hard to say. Played with ChatGPT 4 because 3.5, and as soon as I did, I never went back to 3.5. But then you speak to things like Copilot. I'm a bit resistant to. One, it's a paid for service, and I've got that later in my notes here. How many AI services are there now? It's worse than streaming services. Like, how much is it going to cost me if I go and pay for every little AI tool I want to use at the moment that all have OpenAI GPT-4 on the back end, most likely anyway. There's a lot of overwhelm. So it's been an interesting, from hearing about a few people using chatbots, and I was playing with like Cleverbot. Remember, do you know Cleverbot? Was a little chat thing you could go into, and it'd simulate having a conversation with you, just trained on people having conversations. And that's when people thought about chatbots. I thought it was that. It was like, remember Dr. Spatzo from years back? Those things. It was like that on steroids. But then ChatGPT is just a million miles ahead of that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what when people were talking about chatbots, I'm putting them on your website so they can replace the help on your website. And I just thought, it's just a fancy database that kind of knows how to structure things into sentences. But when I actually worked with ChatGPT, I went, whoa, this is way more than that. So it's been an interesting, my mind's still like after 18 months, my mind's, even though I use it on a daily basis and it's part of my daily life, I'm still blown away by, and watched lots of videos on what LLMs are and how they work. Prior to ChatGPT, I was playing with writing my own neural networks using like the fan library in PHP to create a neural network to have a dot that goes across the screen and knows how to land on a big circle somewhere, just to get my head around what the hell is a neural network. And then, but it's a different skill set. There's a real skill set to using ChatGPT, I think, that a lot of people maybe don't realize.
Yes.
I feel like some people go, oh, it's cheating. And there's some people are using that way. Like we said, someone goes, write me a blog post about how to build a Drupal menu, and they copy and paste the first thing that comes out. And you can tell it's got the signature and writing style all over it. Or you can spend 3 hours iterating on that thing and editing it and telling it where to update things until when it's done, and fill it with, and the same thing you did, giving that stream of consciousness, which I've done with my own blogs. There's the main page on my own website is basically my story and my history of my career and where I started. And there's no way you can go into ChatGPT and go, write a blog post about my IT career, go.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't know, but you can feed it that information and go, when I was a kid, I had a Commodore 64 and I used to sit up all night trying to program Monopoly and Quick Basic, and I lived on a farm, and so interesting. So that's
But one thing I have realized is that when it comes to writing all the prompts, you can sometimes write more than what you get out.
Yep.
So
very much.
So if it is really you want to save time, you're going to be writing probably more sometimes than just writing it out. So what I've seen is people actually use, so there's another service called Claude. Have you heard of Claude?
Is that yes, I have. It's not Google's one. That's
No. It's like Anthropic or something. It's run by them. Anthropic, yeah, I'm not sure. Apparently that one's better for actually writing. And I saw a video where somebody has a PDF, because Claude supports PDFs, where they would have a PDF that pretty much has pages and pages of their writing. Of course, you can just set up this and do it once. Yeah. But what you want to do is kind of have a base and have like a copy of all of your content somewhere to say, look, this is my reading style, understand it. Then you have that. Then after that, go ahead and write me this, and this. But you first of all need that. You need that data. Mind you, I don't know how much they're spending on tokens and things like that.
Well, on that note, have you seen the custom GPTs you get with ChatGPT 4 now? That's that's been the big talk of the town in
the marketplace.
Yeah. So I've created a couple of custom GPTs myself. I've got books that are in PDF form that I've uploaded and gone, here, have this book. And I kind of want to get it to summarize it and get it narrowed down to specific bits of that and make separate ChatGPT. But it's for personal use, right? I do some my own personal development and goal setting, and I've got books that talk about that uploaded into it. So when I speak to it, I can have trained it a little bit. It's kind of not trained, it's the same thing. It give it a knowledge base of this is the school of goal setting that I use. His book tells you all about it. Now I'm doing this goal setting exercise. Walk me through the exercise, and it can look it up and just know how to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's available too at the moment. So that's
Yeah, but I actually use, and I don't know if you want to talk about like tools that we use, but I use a front end called Typing Mind, which is a custom front end. And maybe what I can do is just show it on the screen. I guess that's,
if you like. I'm browsing to it. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can show it. I've actually got,
go on.
I kind of prepared for this. Well, if I pop this down, there we go. We're right down the bottom.
Premium license giveaway. Enter your email.
So if you go to Typing Mind, now you can actually have this as a progressive web app. So just like a local web app. But most importantly down here is that you actually set up your keys. So I don't pay $30 $30, however much it is for ChatGPT Plus. I just have a key set up, and I've got access to all of the actual models. Now, for our podcast listeners, I am showing Typing Mind. So if you want to learn more, head over to typingmind.com. But it is a front end, and in the last 2 months, I've probably spent 3 months, I've probably spent $12, and that's it, instead of spending like $30 a month. But mind you, I did have to buy this, and this was a one-off when I bought it. Is it still a one-off? Yeah, it is. So I bought like $70 for a one-off fee, and that's it. And it's great, man. It's like,
we're not sponsored.
Oh yeah, we're not sponsored, but please do sponsor us. But the fact that it is a one-off fee and that's it, no more subscriptions. I cannot have subscriptions, man. So
see, that's one of the points I had to speak to, is that overwhelm of subscriptions. I mean, we even from our podcast last week, I popped it up in opus.com to go and break this down into some shorts, and got a couple out of it. It created 35 shorts that were pretty good. They're absolutely not fantastic, and you probably want to redo them anyway. But even if it just identifies bits of snippets and scores them for you, it's fantastic. And it did generate those. And there's a free plan for like an hour's worth a month of credits. But on an hour podcast, you use that up in one go. We do one a week. That's a quarter of what we need. So you pay for that, right? And then you pay for another one that generates, what Midjourney's paid for too, if you really want to use it extensively. There's so many tools out there. Ideogram that I use for free. There's Playground AI that I use for free. The image generation I use a lot, but also not very much at all. Kind of. I whipped out a YouTube video yesterday that, after doing my choices exercises, decided to go and give myself an update, do a little bit of a vlog. I whipped out my phone and I did a 7-minute vlog and went and edited it. And because I was talking about a lot of my choices, when I do my choices every day in ChatGPT, at the end of it, I go, now generate an image that represents my vision and my current reality and what we talked about today, just for my own. And I found that when I was making that YouTube video, I was able to go and get all those images and just stick them in and use them as B-roll. Every time I talk about a different choice, I go grab another one of those images, and it's like, well, kind of cool. Like I don't use that's something I never had before. I can just bet it's where does that fit? Then they're not amazing, but for that purpose, just as an image in the background while I'm talking over a vlog, they were perfectly suitable.
Oh yeah, especially for B-roll, because there's nothing more annoying than trying to be like, with me, when it comes to doing thumbnails. I hate doing thumbnails because it requires a certain sense of creativity and things like that, like B-roll and all that type of stuff. But when it comes to like image stuff, I use Canva, and I pay for Canva because it's like $200 a year, and I use it with another person. But it is dirt cheap when you think about it, like the cost of it.
I compared to like Adobe Super Suite.
Absolutely. And it baffles me that it's so cheap. It's going to go up in price. I can guarantee it. I can smell that email coming, with the subject line saying, we have invested so much in the infrastructure. Oh crap, here we go. So you're going to double the prices. That's how they start all those emails. But it is great that you pay one subscription, you can create as many designs as you want, and that's it. Like, it is.
Yeah, I used the free version of Canva, and it's amazing.
Oh yeah, it is.
And if I had more creativity, I'd totally keep using the free version. I think the big value in the paid for one is really good templates.
Yeah, absolutely. And also all of the icons and all that you can use for free, essentially, all the premium stuff. But I use it for all thumbnails, all PDF slideshows, because LinkedIn allows you to create slideshows. And for my short form content, I create the individual slides, and then I can export it out as a PDF or as images, so you can go onto LinkedIn or Instagram. And I've even played around with recording those slideshows, because now what you can do is record. And I was like, wait a minute, if I just record myself,
type of thing.
where you literally record it. I'm like, if I just record myself doing it, then I can then do it all through Canva, and then from producing one piece of content, I can have a PDF, a video, and a slideshow. So you can do all of that. And yeah, if you want to generate stuff, you just go in there, you need B-roll, just type in generate, and it does it all. And it does it all
Canva
for
too,
you.
yeah.
Yeah. Canva does it as well. And
this is where AI and previously, of course, software-based automation has been around for as long as software's been around, just getting better and better. And now we're in this nether region where there's gray area between what counts as, because really when we're talking AI, I like to call it generative AI, because you're using LLMs and transformers and stuff like that. But I think the part of the boom now is a combination of that, as well as just plain old automation tools which are, because you've got like generative AI getting built into spreadsheets and documents where you already had macros and stuff. So now it's kind of writing the macros for. It's very, there's a border. There's this fuzziness between what's just plain automation and what's artificial intelligence. I think just spitballing at the moment.
Well, I do see value, especially when it comes to spreadsheets. I do see value in having the ability to say, give me the average of such and such column, because every time I pull out, budgets and all that for my stuff, sometimes I go and download a CSV file from my bank to see all my transactions. And I always spend 20 minutes Googling, wait, how do I create a pivot table again? How do I do this? Because I'm not in Sheets. Well, I use Google Sheets. I'm not in Sheets every single day. Actually, I am. I use Google Sheets a lot for anything. But having the ability to say, okay, do this for me, and it automatically does it all for you, is pretty good. Like, is very good. The only annoying thing is that the AI stuff, the Duet AI in like Google Workspace, you have to pay for it. It's like, I'm not paying for it.
You see that that's where I think some of this stuff, it sounds amazing, but everywhere I look, there's people sucking more money out of your wallet, and it's kind of $20 here, $20 there, 200 a year here. But it's like suddenly my cash flow's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think I'm paying the only, because I use, so the things that I use, like Notion. So I use Notion, which is a note-taking tool. And luckily I've been grandfathered in because I've been paying for it for ages. And it's like $48 a year, and it runs everything for me from a business side and life side. Now, I would be paying, I think I'm paying like $4 a month technically, and it ends up being like $8 a month to get the AI stuff. And it's like, do I really need it? Because chances are they're just using ChatGPT-4. I might as well just do it myself. And there's not much value in that. I use Grammarly, but Grammarly's been AI anyway. But even their generative stuff, where you can say, write me an email to do this, it is being crap. Like, it is not good. And so I don't even bother with that. And I have felt that lately Grammarly has been rewriting sentences, and every single time it rewrites it, I'm like, no, like this is wrong. Like it totally changes the subject and the object around in the sentence structure. And I'm like, no, this is wrong, to the point where I'm like, no, this is going backwards. Like it seriously is. And also the annoying thing about Grammarly is that it's hit and miss with Google Docs and all that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Anyway, that's a whole other thing.
It's because this is we're still discussing AI in our daily lives, and it's massive, because some of the things I've got down here is the overwhelm. Even just if you just narrow our focus down to ChatGPT for a moment, or using that, I know the concept of prompting, right? You go, I've watched maybe hours and hours of videos on prompting when I first started playing with ChatGPT, trying to get, and I don't know how much I learned and how much, there's a lot of knowledge that is a skill now. I don't even know how to explain to somebody that I have a certain level of prompting skills. I've got ideas in my head that I know how to work. I know to do things like what they call a train of thought prompting and stuff. You actually tell ChatGPT, go through this process in order to get to the answer, and that you'll get a much better result if you tell it how to think.
Yeah, but do you think your skills as a developer helps?
Yes.
I think it does.
Yes.
Because you understand logic. You understand that in code, you need to be specific, and you need to exactly kind of like just figuring out like an if statement, a switch statement, saying this, being specific. I think that really helps. And that's why developers have
interesting.
picked up
Another
on
one
it.
of those fuzzy skills. You're right, where you're not coding, and it's you're literally not writing code. You're not doing control structures. You're not doing if statements, but that ability to break a problem down into logical steps.
But you are in a certain way.
Probably the first thing you ever learn in coding, right? The whole, how do you make a cup of coffee? It's like, go and get the kettle, fill it with water, put it on, wait till it gets to a certain heat, then and you that loop is the heat. Right? And you kind of got to tell, often tell ChatGPT to work that way. But also knowing the art of when to let it go by itself. And also, but this meta work of it, because you can go to ChatGPT, hey, what's the right way to describe how to make a cup of, like, if you had to describe how to make a cup of coffee for somebody, what approach should I take, right? And it'll go, maybe break it down into steps, give an intro and then a middle and then a summary, and you go, okay, do that. But if you just said, explain how to make a cup of coffee, it wouldn't do a good job. But if you asked it how to do a good job of it first, and then go, okay, do that, you get a much better result, right? And then also keeping track of, you write a prompt that gives you a good result, and then you've got to track that. And you mentioned yourself to me that you've got a GitHub Markdown document. I've got one too, where I go and put my prompts. I haven't touched it for ages because the cognitive overload of, because you're sitting there problem solving, chatting to ChatGPT there straight for 2 hours, like having a conversation, and then having to go and review all those logs to go, what did I prompt? What were my key points? And then when it runs out of context window and you've got to train it again, and you go, you still got to keep track of all that information yourself to an extent anyway, because I find it gives it can really guide you and really help until suddenly it doesn't. And then you go, now I've got to explain it all to it again.
And that's why you need an end goal. You need to figure out, okay, what am I trying to achieve? Do I want it to, and this is where it comes down to time and effort. I'm actually writing now a lot of short form content, and I like to chuck in like one or two sentences, or maybe more than that, probably 100, 200 words in my short form content with my videos. And it's actually quicker and easier for me to just write it out myself, because the time spent just to get all of that is just not worth it. But if you can use it, and also if you have a plan to say, okay, the end result is this, I want it to generate an outline for a blog post or a video, but instead of just an outline for a YouTube video, let's say, for example, you also want it to generate an outline of a YouTube video, a script, three titles. That's something I've often chucked in. I want three different titles. Also, at the same time, write 3 tweets about promoting it, so that you can chuck everything in there. You generate it once, and then you get something out of it. And then it's about figuring out the exact prompts that you need to give it, and
tracking them,
and then going after the fact and then the next day you're like, wait a minute, why is it giving me these terrible replies? It's like, oh, I forgot this one. But also, like, one thing I've noticed is that because I'm using Typing Mind and it pays, and I literally pay per token, I've noticed that sometimes some of my requests can be like 40 cents for like a single request. especially if I'm giving them blog posts. So what I've been doing is I've actually been exporting out blog posts from WebWash, and I say, here is a copy of a blog post. Now, some of my blog posts are 2,000 words.
Yep.
Now, a token is, I would say, what is that, 1.5 words, something? I don't know. I can't remember exactly.
But a token would be based on characters or something.
Yeah, it's not, but
it's
it kind of is.
Text.
It's a snippet. It's a certain amount of characters. Yeah. And I do know that GPT-4 is the most expensive, whereas GPT Turbo is cheaper and supports, I think, 16K tokens. But yeah, GPT-4 Turbo, 128K. But it's much cheaper. ChatGPT-4 is only 8K, so 8,000, but it's like 3-4 times the price. But I have noticed that the quality difference is pretty significant between Turbo and GPT-4.
It is. I can't go. Well, I haven't
GPT-4
done it so much
the
with
best
content creation, but with particularly coding, and particularly in the Drupal space, with doing coding, like I've used it before where suddenly I run out of my token limit, right? Especially that's the thing when you get frustrated with it and it's not, and you keep arguing with it, going, no, you're not doing it right, and you're getting response. Suddenly, you've used that.
Listen here, mate.
3 hours. Yeah, that's how you win an argument. ChatGPT, you just tell me I run out of tokens.
Yeah.
And then, which can be frustrating, but then you got to go back and use ChatGPT 3.5 or 3.5 Turbo, and there's just no point. I just go, nah, I just got to wait until I get my tokens back, because the difference is so big that there's no point in going back and trying to continue with 3.5. It just doesn't do the job. And even ChatGPT 4 doesn't do it. You still get, see, there's one of the first things I learned about it though, was it, like, as a developer, I had to know what I was doing in order to get ChatGPT to help me do it. Like, because it'd just tell you complete absolute furfies, or you'd need to direct it and guide it in a certain direction, or know how to ask it the right question, or that's. But then again, it's also it can enhance knowing what you're doing, because I'm running Manjaro Linux on my computer at home, and the amount of times I want to do some troubleshooting, and I'll just ask it. I go, I'm in this problem. How would I? What things should I check? And it goes, check this, and you go, okay, yeah, I got this error. I don't know what it means. Explain to me what this error means. And it goes, explains this, and and it goes, it means you haven't installed such and such a library. And you go, I never would have known that.
Oh, so
right?
It was right.
Yeah, I've seen it do that. Like, it's kind of because you get an error like couldn't find such and such library file.
Yeah.
Right. And you go, great, can't find that library file. Good on you. And you go, what's this error mean? And it goes, it's because you haven't installed such and such a package. That's what supplies that library. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that, but it does. And
interesting.
It's kind of, I find it really good in that. Droid Cam I was setting up to doing, doing these live feeds and stuff. I'm not using it now. I ended up patching the thing. I was trying to install it in Manjaro. It wasn't installing properly. I ended up using it to go through, what's this error mean? And, but just logically troubleshooting, going, what's this mean? Trying it out, running commands. It told me, and it'll tell you, I want to know, how do I tell if I got the right driver installed, for example? And it goes, run this command. You go, cool. Here's the output. I don't understand it. Are the right drivers installed? And it goes, yeah, here they. And it'll go, yeah, they are. And you go, great, thanks. It's an interesting. Right. So it's also, but if you didn't know how to use Linux, you wouldn't be able to do that. Right. So there's a certain, where's the cutoff between knowing what you're doing and not knowing what you like it. See what I mean? It's like a catalyst that can take my skill level and enhance it, but it can't take me from nothing. It's a good way to look at it, I think.
Well, that's a great segue, I think, to possibly talking about the future of development and where do we as developers fit in all of this? Because if you look on the news or anywhere, honestly, it's like the world's gone nuts.
Take out jobs. I love that.
Like, pretty much in 18 months, within, since when ChatGPT came out, before that, everyone was saying, a developer, you always have a job for life if you become well, maybe not a job for life,
Yes.
but there was always a talk of, when driverless cars come out, what's going to happen to all the truck drivers? Well, they can learn to code because there's always work for coders. Now it's kind of like, well, don't be a developer because ChatGPT is going to take your job away. And
or is it? That's the question, isn't it?
Well, that's it. Now, my opinion on this is that no, it's not going to take your job away. I don't know about entry-level jobs, like just getting into the market's going to be tough. But I know when I was trying to be a developer, when early on, it was tough to get in. But I do think that maybe developers will be more generalized and maybe not specific, because as a developer, you just need to understand the fundamentals of programming. And I've mentioned this probably before in our other 2 episodes, which you should go check on YouTube. See, there we go. We're kind of like spruiking our channel.
Well done.
Yes. And I've said often that all programming languages are the same as long as you understand, how to deal with arrays, objects, variables, and things like that. Then, the rest of us just understanding all the nuances. So, as a developer, I do think that these tools will help us a lot, especially for like fixing up bugs. And that's one thing that GitHub, the Copilot doesn't quite do, because I did actually see a recent video. I think I forgot which developer he was, but they were talking about, I want to say it's Linus Torvalds, the founder of Linux. Maybe it's not. I'm not sure. But essentially, he was saying that he's bullish on AI as a tool to help developers, because I would love it if something in PHP Storm or VS Code told me if my code was going to break. Now, Copilot kind of does it, but not in a nice way, where it technically just generates code. But I would love it if you went one step further and said, oh, by the way, fix this up. And PHP Storm has contextual little things that pop up. And I think they are trying to push that, because JetBrains.
Like where the AI goes, and I think I heard it was Linus Torvalds saying that I can see what you're trying to do. I can see what pattern. Are you sure that's like the kind of clippy?
Exactly.
I see what pattern you're doing. That's not the same as the normal way I see the pattern. Are you sure that's how you want it? Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where it becomes useful, and I do wait for that. The other thing, and this is something that I've been grappling with recently working on projects, is that I really want some type of tool that runs locally, that can take over my desktop, and I can tell it to go into every single content type on my Drupal site and create a view mode on 20 different content types, and then use a specific layout on it. And I just tell it, and it just does it for me.
Yeah, let's build it. Honestly,
I don't know.
There are tools in Linux that you can run on your command line that basically take over your command line for you. So instead of running Bash, you're running an AI interface that goes and, but obviously there's a conversation about privacy and things here too. Like that's why
absolutely. That's why you want to run it locally.
And then you need 10 GPUs.
No, but not even that. I mean, writing tests. I hate writing tests. I do not enjoy writing tests. Now, can I actually tell it to, write a PHP unit test, which clicks on here, and do it, and then run it? Like to the point where I've actually been playing a lot with Playwright, which is a JavaScript-based testing framework, because I feel like it visually makes things a lot easier to see what the hell is happening when things break, instead of doing it at the PHP level. Anyway, that's a conversation for another blog, for another episode. But things like that, like I can see a lot of reasons where it's like, you know what, this can all be automated. Like recently, I was just today, last couple of days, I've been working on a project where I've had to manually change config YAML files.
Yep.
And can I automate that? Now, there's probably tools for that, but I come down, like for me, it comes down to, well, this is a one-off. If I'm going to spend 3 hours automating it, or do I spend an hour and a half just doing it?
Yeah, that's the constant.
That's the constant thing, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Before AI came along.
Yeah. So I do think from a developer standpoint, it is going to help. Absolutely,
yeah, I think so. I mean, I've already seen that, but as soon as you say writing tests, that's one of the big use cases I've had for it from Drupal, and not so much like kind of not writing the whole test, writing bits of it. Like give me a general outline of the structure for the test. And then you run it, and obviously it doesn't work. You get the error, you paste the error into the thing, and you go, what's this error mean? And it goes, fix this bit. So you go and fix that, and then you paste the whole file back in there, and you go, right, I need to have it install some modules. There's some config missing. I don't know. Can you tell me which config missing? It might be this. And you check that. You go, it's not that. Yeah, right. And then it's kind of a bit like peer programming.
Yeah.
To an extent. And I find
absolutely.
I work with it that way. But then we're talking future of AI and what's it got to do? What on earth is the next generation of these language models going to do? I mean, can you just go, I need a Drupal site that goes blah, 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 blah. What do you think? And it goes, do you want this? And starts asking you questions. Do you want your logo like that? Do you want this? And it goes and generates it. And if it does, is it going to generate good, manageable, easy to maintain code? Some of the big questions I got. Like that's all I see a lot of bit at the moment. People very cleverly getting it to build software, and they go, look, I built this software. It's fantastic. Look, I build a website. And you go, yeah, but what do you do in 12 months' time when you need to maintain that?
What about the security vulnerabilities? It needs to be tested.
Yeah, well, you can obviously have a network of bots. So, have another bot you feed it through that checks for that. But someone's got to build those bots and connect them together, right? It's just so mind-boggling to the point that I'm almost, this is partly where we are now. I'm almost being very aware of AI. This is the first time in my career where I've gone, something's changing big enough that I'm on alert, right? Yeah. Is my job still going to be around? Or at least is my job going to be around in the same form it was? Because I've just been writing code for, 25 years?
Yeah.
I don't know, a long time. I was writing code in high school, and those skills, that's we touched on. Those skills are beneficial as developers. We can do these things because we're developers, but we're going to have another generation of people come through who have this tool with them now. Right. And it's so hard to predict where they're going to be because they don't have that historical knowledge that we've got in order to apply these things, but they're going to have this familiarity and affinity for speaking with an AI interface that we don't have. That's one of my big points. I think conversing with these tools, for lack of a better way to put it, is a skill set in itself.
Yeah.
And some people will be talented at it. I think that, it's almost like people skills. Some people are better at talking to people than others. Some people are going to be better at talking to intelligent computers than others. It's and content generation. Like it's touching on the arts. It's touching on the tech. It's touching on the sciences. It's touching on. They're absolutely right. So it's kind of, on one hand, there's a lot of hype and a lot of a lot of doomsday sort of stuff. Which is such a big topic to talk about in itself, with the different threats of, the threats from taking your job, the threats from too much automation, the threats from AI going rogue, which are legitimate threats. But then there's all that hype. But then is it overhyped? The future.
Is it? What do you think? Like, what do you think? Like, are you one of those that think AI is going to eventually take over? Do you think that there's a threat?
No, I think that's what they said about the internet when it came out, and it did, and here we are. It's kind of that paradoxically both sides are true. Like, sort of like the internet's going to ruin the world, and it did. Look at the world. Look at this.
Well,
but also made it way better, right? There's two sides to the coin. There's so much things with the internet's changed our lives, both for the better and the worse, depending on how you look at it.
yeah, absolutely.
And it's very hard to predict where we will go, but I got a general belief in humanity anyway. And maybe society as we know it will end, but something else will rise from those ashes at least, right? Which is horrible, but it's so hard to predict. I don't want to be an expert. This is all my experience of using AI and what I've seen in my life. But that's
Absolutely.
I don't. This is why I'm always on the fence on things, because I look at both sides of the coin. It's we may see, and I think there's a lot of very intelligent people out there and a lot of very clever people, both good and bad, who are going to come up with amazing ideas I can't think of. Their potential for change here is, I just, even look at, let's look at just generative art, right? And I know a lot of graphic artists are upset looking at it being theft, and I worked so hard to hone my skills to get to this point. But it's a new tool for them too, and there's going to be people that are just better at generating AI art than others who know how to integrate it with their tools and can get a much better result. I mean, already from AI, I see that I can't get. It reminds me of Agile in the sense that I can guarantee you I'll get a good result, but I can't tell you exactly what that result will be. AI, the art, generative art really does that. It's like, I know I can get you a picture of a really photorealistic looking house, but exactly what that house looks like, I don't like. It's a bit of a roll of the dice, right? Reminds me of growing a tree you grow a tree outside. I can tell you the tree is going to be approximately 40 to 45 meters tall, be green so much wide. It's a pine tree. Pine trees look like pine trees, but exactly how many branches it's going to have, and is it going to grow perfectly straight? I don't know, right? And I can't control that. And I find people are going to be able to be better at getting the results than others.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think when it comes to like the future and things like that, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I feel like you either have to be on one side where you're like, AI, let it go. It's it's going to happen, and then you have the other side, which is like, no, it needs control. We need to be careful of it. And, both sides are kind of fighting against each other. I just think there's pluses and minuses to both sides, just like the internet was meant to democratize everything. Well, it kind of did that in the beginning. Now most content is owned by a few massive platforms and it's owned by corporates. So when you think about, we went from having hundreds of newspapers and TV stations and radio stations. Now we have a few major platforms that control everything. And yes, the internet's given us a lot. Well, the connectivity, I would say, not like, to me, the internet is more than just a browser. It is the connectivity, of devices and things like that, have changed the world. But I also think it's a bit naive to think that, AI is not going to be used for bad things as well. Like, it is already being used for deep fakes. And don't even get me started on the military aspect of it, because that is scary in itself. Like, there's a great book, which I had to look up to get the right name, that I read, and I want to make sure. It's called Kill Decision by Daniel Suarez. And he does like, he does fiction books. And I've pretty much read most of his books, but this Kill Decision is about how the concept is that there's a scientist that studies how ants swarm, and the scientists created an algorithm and a model, large language model for that, and they realized, and this book came out in 2012, and it was talking about drones, swarming drones, and that for over 10 years, that's been in the back of my mind. And now what's happening is, countries have realized that it's much cheaper to have thousands of drones swarming because you can just easily take things out. And that's it. It's like that's one part where it will be weaponized. Like there's
Nanites.
no.
I keep saying nanites.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like it is going to happen. There is no controlling it, and it's just a bit naive to, as I said, to think it's not going to happen.
Something's going to happen.
Yeah,
that's the one thing we do know. Like
exactly.
That's a universal law. Change is inevitable.
Yeah, the only constant is change. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's just how you tackle it and how you adjust and how you can learn
from does lead us into navigating AI challenges, which we've got here, because they were discussing the future of AI. Where's it going? How do we navigate that? What do you because obviously both of us have already to a certain level embraced it to a certain level, right? And it comes with its own thing. How much do you embrace it? It's overwhelming. The one thing I wanted to noted in here was that already you could spend your whole life learning to be an expert mastering using generative AI tools. Like there's already enough that you could spend your whole life mastering what we already have, let alone what's coming. Right. So we've both embraced it to a certain extent. But in the future, where do you see, what kind of decisions are you making in your life now in order to prepare for what may or may for this unknown, right? Because we do know that's what I think, something's coming. It's going to change. I don't know in what way yet.
The best thing that you can do is just to learn these tools, and I don't know what killer tool is going to be used in the future. I think as a developer, I think the age of specialization is probably slowly ending, where they're going to expect, especially me as a developer, like, am I going to be a Drupal developer in the next 10 years? I don't know. I think now being a Drupal developer requires that DevOps, it requires that Docker, requires that all these other things. And I think in the future, as a developer, as long as you're there and you understand that your job isn't to write code, it is to solve a problem. That's the most important thing. And you use the correct tool, the right tool for the right job. And if that is using, I don't know, some other system, then so be it. But I think the problem is that when developers, because they are a bunch of opinionated people, they get really fixated on silly things like which IDE is the best. Who cares? Do you know how many IDEs I've used in my life?
I think for life. Yeah, no.
I actually wanted to do a presentation about this, and I think I started collecting a list of it. Yes, VS Code is popular now, but it's not going to be popular forever. Who cares?
I saw a thumbnail for a YouTube video the other day, the new VS Code killer or something. I don't know.
What was Z or something? I saw.
I don't know.
So exactly. It's like, who cares? But your job is to solve a problem, and that's it. And so as long as you think that way, and then just use the right tools for the right job, and don't be afraid of using new tools and having to play with it. But it comes down to the same way on how do you stay relevant as a developer? You need to keep on top of new technology. And to me, the AI is just another facet of it, and that's it. There's still going to be, you're still going to write code. You're still going to have to write CSS, HTML. Why not? You're still going to have to do all that. It's just, you're going to have to then, but you'll use different tools. Instead of me, for example, trying to figure out, okay, which service to use in Drupal to load up this, and this, I'll just ask ChatGPT first. I'll be like, okay, you are a Drupal developer. I want to modify this, and this. Can you tell me exactly which service to use? Great. Can you create a service or a event subscriber on this event? Okay. Can you inject the following services into this class. Okay, thank you. And take it, copy paste it, test it out, works. Yep, does what you want to do.
It's funny. That's it. The skill is learning how to communicate with an artificial intelligent database.
Yeah, that's it.
I think that's where we're going to pivot a bit, because even saying that, there's going to get to the point where you go and ask the tool what's the right way to design something and what's the right way to approach it, and then have it lead you through, so it's almost working in tandem. I think that's where it's going for the moment. But then future-wise, I tend to be pivoting out of development a bit, working on this content creation a little bit. I and it's totally an intuitive gut thing, and maybe just a time of life where I want to make a change, but and maybe this is my chance rather than an inevitable thing. But I feel like it's changing enough that for me, it's a bit of time to start to pivot and not be a developer anymore. Hence joining a Drupal course, it's almost become a teacher in that. There's still a space for teaching people Drupal at this stage. It's not gone away yet, but it might, right? But then also not trying to bring that into getting more into the art of it, the art of content creation. Because I kind of feel that's why I touched on the artists being worried about where they're being worried about these things. What about our jobs? And I kind of go, it's almost a world where we were scared of automation before this AI business took off. Now we should be even more scared. And there's a lot of jobs are going to disappear. So what do you do then when there just aren't jobs around, but people still want to communicate and dream and laugh and learn and hear storytelling, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's an interesting place at the moment. And so I feel like maybe that's what I'm doing, pivoting out of being a developer into being a storyteller. And the start of that is telling stories about being a developer.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think it's the enhancement to creativity, like that's what said, making YouTube videos, was sitting there and I get to go and create an image that I can put in the B-roll. Like AI didn't do all my editing for me, even though there are tools that can do that, but it's still, the one thing I've noticed with AI is it's completely inert until you tell it to do something, right? And unless they get some machine that sits there and just polls itself, right, and spins up and shuts down and spins up and shut down. At the moment, it's just dead until it's not like it sits there and it thinks. It's not until you've got to give it a stimulus for it to respond. Whereas humans can sit there and sort of ponder. It's an interesting thing, like this artificial intelligence isn't sitting there thinking. It only responds when you prod it. Yeah, exactly. So there's got to be a human driver behind it, right? So human vision, human consciousness, human direction, for at least for the near future that I can see. And maybe I'm completely naive, but I think that's the driver. Like it's not going to replace human. Getting a bit philosophical here, but what's that word for having the agency and control of your own life? But as being as creative beings ourselves, right? I don't think it's going to replace that for a while. AI doesn't do anything without a human input. So I mean, it's fascinating. I don't know where it's coming. I don't know where it's going. I think that's the bottom line. Is there's just so much change. I mean, could have I predicted where the internet was going 20 years ago? Well, exactly. But then I rode the wave, right? Yeah. So I think this is the same thing. Be aware. Just keep your eyes open and don't hide your head under the sand. It's probably the best advice.
Well, that's it. And be prepared for change. Don't be that old curmudgeon. I don't want to change. Just understand.
Yeah, maybe it's our generation too. We're young enough to have seen people. I saw the real estate industry do that for a long time. Refuse to get onto the internet, right? Until one day, pretty much, particularly in Australia, like McGrath just came in and took over. Yeah. Right? And everyone else had to follow suit and catch up, or they get left behind. Uber did it to the taxi drivers, right?
Yeah.
So that's and I think that's we've reiterated it over and over again. Change is coming. I don't think there's anywhere. If I'm wrong about that, then hey, I was wrong. But it's a bit
absolutely.
Bit of a truism too. The change is coming. It's always coming.
But when I actually think about that, like our generation, we remember a world before mobile phones,
Yep.
before internet. We've seen it. We've seen change.
Yep.
If you have younger generations that have only known a world with internet and phone, and that's it.
Yep.
So for them, it's always been like they haven't gone through that change. So yeah, I don't know. Does that put us in a certain
I think they're going
league
to be
where
having
we're
this conversation themselves, and you know that they're going to
yeah?
go. The next generation wasn't even alive when AI wasn't.
Well, yeah,
I do see.
exactly.
It's very much like the internet revolution. I see it.
Mm,
That we had an industrial revolution. That and things are happening quicker. The cycles of I'm getting
yeah,
philosophical, right? But the cycles of change in the world are happening faster and faster. We had an industrial revolution. Then we've had our what do they call it, the information age. Right, and that's just this is the next phase of that. The information age is transforming into something I haven't named yet, right? But it's gone from because it's the next progression of the information age. There's so much information. That's what they trained the models on.
yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah, you couldn't have trained it without the information. So the
Yeah,
information had to come first.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what is it? Creativity? I don't see. I think that's my prediction. I think it's just got to.
Mm.
And it's either going to go good or bad, right? I think people are afraid of order. I try to put a positive spin on it. People go, well, what about all our jobs? I go, what do you want? Like, we just won't have jobs anymore, in a sense. Like, we're going to have to come up with this. The world's going to need to adapt, and it's a bit
Yeah.
like it's stirring the pot, and we're going to see where the dice falls. And
Well,
that's what I said. They're
exactly.
going to be some very smart people, and it's like who's going to take the reins and steer it. It's either going to be, I'll get really, that's the world for itself, but we're each got our own individual agency to guide our own individual lives on top of that. So from a personal
Yeah.
standpoint, there's nothing else to do but, same old advice you've always had. Decide what you want in your life and go for it.
Exactly.
But yeah, but also keep your eyes open. That's always been the advice for life is choose your destination and pay attention to where you are and guide it in that direction. And this is the same. But something's go round and round. So it's gone. I think both of us are in agreement. Change is coming.
Absolutely.
For better or worse.
Yeah. That's it.
I think we pulled it to an end there.
There you go. That is a great closing thought.
Yeah. So, well done. I guess that wraps us up for this week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be here again next week to have a great time again. So, see you later.
See ya.